Presiding Commissioner Darrell Skiles. I've got a special guest today, too.
Yes, sir.
It's Ron Copeland's in, so very good. So, Darrell, good to see you, my friend. How's
Thank you,
that
Stan.
nice crisp morning been the last few days?
You know what? That's fine. It's that time of year. The beautiful spring or beautiful fall mornings, beautiful fall days. It got a little cooler this week, but it's out here. It's going to warm up. The vest felt pretty good early this morning, but out checking cows and stuff. But it's going to warm up, and looking forward to that rain that's moving in here about Sunday, right?
Very good. Hopefully,
Seriously.
actually a double dose, maybe a little bit on Monday and Wednesday, and then maybe over the weekend next weekend.
Yeah,
So
that'd be all right. We can use it.
Yeah.
We can
So
use it,
not talking maybe 1 to 2 inches of rain.
Yeah, that'd be just
weekday,
fine.
so.
If we got enough to run some creeks and fill some ponds, that'd be all right too. But do have a special guest today.
That's right.
Representative Ron Copeland. Good morning, Ron.
Good morning. I'm glad to be here.
Ron's up and at 'em.
Yeah.
Ready to take on the world, aren't you?
Got several things to do today already.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do. All righty. Well, it's good to have you. Do we want to start talking to Ron first, or you want to do some county
I think
business
Ron
first?
had something he needed to get to here
Okay,
a
very
little
good.
bit later, and so if you want Ron, just go ahead and kind of update on kind of what happened in the last session and so forth, and what passed, maybe what didn't, what the governor vetoed, and what you've done with that. So just go.
I'll hit the major points. I mean,
There
there's
you
a
go.
lot I could talk about what passed and what didn't pass, what was good and what was not good. That's an opinion in some ways, but the one thing I think that every Missourian, that working Missourian, is going to benefit from is the tax cut that we gave to all the Missouri taxpayers. And really, it was one of the largest tax cuts I think that Missouri's ever seen for income taxes. If anybody doesn't know, right now Missouri's income tax is 5.3%. So what we did in session and the governor suggested was we made a deal, and it's going to go down to 4.9 is what your tax going, and the first 1,000 you won't pay any on. I mean, so that's a big tax credit or tax break for the citizens and workers of Missouri. I really think that you guys can spend your money better than we can. I'd like to give more, and there's also triggers in that bill that if we reach a certain amount in surplus, it will go down again. And the following year, if we get a surplus of a certain amount, it'll go down again. So the money that we're taking in, we don't want to keep and spend. We want to keep giving it back as much as we can. There was a talk about a corporate tax cut. I mean, we wanted to give it back to the individual before we did the corporate. Corporate in the long run could pay off, with jobs and stuff in the state. But we'll look at that next year and the year after. If that's something that we can do, that we can afford to do, we'll do. So.
Right. But it all still depends on the economy.
Very much so, and it did start out, we did have veto session. The governor vetoed the House bill that we gave a $500 tax break to individuals and $1,000 to married couples. Which the reason we did that in the House was, we knew what we had in the budget, and we wanted to give that back as soon as we could. Given a tax break to change the tax code is a very big undertaking. So we wanted to look at that next year in session. But since the governor vetoed it, we kind of looked at it a little quicker, and hopefully there won't be no negative effects of that, since we kind of rushed through that a little bit to get to that, going from 5.3 to 4.9. What's that going to constitute? I want to say it even upped, I want to say it was somewhere around 14 up to 15 now thousand that you didn't get on some lower income people. Right. So, I mean, there's a lot of things in that we need to, hopefully it'll pan out in the long run, and we'll find out next year. I think we got a good surplus. Where they talk up there, we got a good surplus of taxes to look at what we need to do, and if we need to give more back next year and we hit them triggers, we'll give more back. That's our goal. It's my goal anyway.
And you're talking about that money, and of course, we all know that for a while there we didn't have the taxes, and it was, things didn't get done, and then they're trying to cut this to save that, and we were looking at getting some roads were getting in pretty bad shape, and things have turned around, but it still takes time to get everything done.
Oh, very much so. I mean, it's overwhelming. I was in a meeting yesterday on crime prevention study group that I was appointed to. I mean, Department of Mental Health is understaffed. I mean, there's just so many things we got to look at, and the economy and state workers and private industry, you know, the workforce development is one of the biggest things we're fighting right now. As everybody sees that, you know, even normal businesses see they don't have a workforce. The state doesn't have a workforce, and you know, citizens want us to do our job, but when we're short and these agencies or people leaving for private agencies, we're short, and it's frustrating to the citizens when, you know, they pay their taxes for us to do our job and we don't have the staff to do that, and they have to wait, or, you know, they just get discouraged. So that's a big thing we need to work on too. But then, do you need taxes to hire people to pay them more because you know, they're leaving for private industry? Because you can make a lot more in private industry than you can in the state workers.
But but everybody forgets that increases in anything, whether it be taxes or salaries or everything, increases everything. So now they don't get that. I said an increase in anything makes an increase in everything, because you give $1 more an hour to an employee, it's $1.25 more you're going to pay somewhere down the road, because you got to pay for that employee, you got to pay for the taxes, and you got to pay for the effect it has on a corporation. Let's say they got to pay income taxes, so somebody's got to pay for that. So if you want to look down the road, and trust me, and as an accountant, you see it all the time. You can watch the trends, and that's the scary part, because we have a lot of openings that are out there. We need a lot of positions filled, like you're talking about mental health. That's open and things of that nature. But even in the private sector, when they start jacking these prices up, where's it going to end? And that's why inflation right now is going out of control.
Oh, I agree with you. I think, you know, we get back to minimum wage and all that. You know, increase minimum wage, hamburgers are going to go up. You know, so really, how does that really affect? You say you can make that much money, but really, does it really buy as much? It doesn't buy as much. I mean, so it's a shell game there that we need to look at.
It's a vicious circle.
And then, you know, we've got, with COVID, you know, the federal government spent tons and tons of money into the states, and we had a surplus of money that we used for them kind of things, but we're not going to have that money in a few years. So we're going to have to look at what we're doing now and be thrifty and invest in projects that will continue to go on without continued investments. I mean, you know, so there's a lot of things we can invest in that can help the communities with that money, instead of just throwing it away for something that's not useful in the future.
And you well know, especially being in Jeff City, that the companies that invest in Missouri are what keeps the state going.
Oh, definitely,
you know,
so.
And
I mean,
that's what you want to keep having, and those people to work for those companies. But at the same time, like you're mentioning, you can't have the governmental sector suffer, because some of those people are leaving for the private sectors simply because there's no way you can compete with some of those salaries.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just a circle that we're trying to figure out where's the happy medium, and when's it going to stop is, hey, this is where we need to be. I don't need to make $50 an hour, because $50 an hour, then everybody has to make 40, 50 to compete with that, and cars are this, you know, it's just amazing what we used to pay for a car when we were 16 compared to now, you know.
And a lot of the price of cars, you're paying for past employees of car companies that are getting benefits that every time everything goes up, those benefits go up and they raise the price of the car. And I can honestly tell you that I ran across some of those people here a couple of years back when we were kind of in that lull. Nothing was really changing right before COVID, but the economy was strong, but we weren't seeing these spikes. And when you don't see the spikes, you're good. When you start to see the spikes, then everybody reacts to the spikes. So all of a sudden, we went from $11 an hour to everybody needs to make $15. No. Why would I pay somebody $15 an hour when some people have earned up to $14.50, and now I'm going to start somebody at $15, and this person's been with me 3 years, and they've earned that additional $3.50? Now what do you do? Now do you raise those people another $3.50? All of a sudden, your payroll is getting spiked, and it's out of sight. Then you have to really adjust prices to try and keep up. And people, you're losing power of your dollar every time that happens.
I agree with you.
Yep, vicious circle. You also had, in the veto session, you had to deal about the tax breaks.
The tax credits?
Tax credits.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. Tax
that
credits.
was also vetoed. I
issue.
think that the bill itself was not, that the governor didn't like
And
that
this was
bill.
tax breaks for agriculture, right?
Well, it was agricultural tax credits is what they were called. The tax credits is what was the issue, you know, back to these, because a lot of people think that, you know, we're picking and choosing winners with a tax credit. I mean, I struggle with that, But, you know, if you look at the tax credit, it does keep businesses here and it keeps people employed. If we can keep people here, it's paying for itself back and back again. Some people just don't like picking and winning losers. Okay. But most of them are agricultural businesses that, you know, wood energy tax credit, you know, for our area. That's a big tax credit for the wood industry. You know, that's a big business in this rural area in my district. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I support that. So that did get vetoed, and the issue was that the 2-year tax credit instead of a 6-year tax credit. The governor was opposed to the 2 because the businesses can't plan with the 2-year, and I agree with that. But it was a deal that was made between the Senate and House for that bill. So he vetoed that, and we come to a compromise in veto session to add the 6, and it worked out for the tax credits. So the tax credits are 6, and they have to be funded. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's tax credits out there that I was in a meeting the other day, and there's 50, 70 tax credits out there in the state, but if they're not funded, you're not eligible for them tax credits. So they have to be funded through the legislature for that to happen. But that did pass, and I will say that my log truck bill that I'd been carrying for the last 2 years was on that. Mm-hmm. So, and it is an agricultural type thing because it helps our logging industry. And if you look at how Missouri claims their agricultural benefits and touts how agriculture is in Missouri, they always count the timber industry sales as part of their agriculture. So that should be considered an agricultural commodity, you know.
So that part of the bill did make it through then with what you passed.
What happened is he went in a special session after veto session. He called a special session, which is very limited, and he did that on a tax basis limit, right? So it was just that's all we could discuss. But I think there was some talking with the governor and the Senate and the House leadership that, you know, he was going to expand that because there was some anhydrous stuff on that ag bill that we had, and my log truck bill was on there, and there's some other things that dealt with agriculture that weren't tax based, right? So I found this out. I learn a lot every time I go up there. I'm still alive, right? I'm dead until I don't learn something. So I learned that, you know, he can expand the scope of the session. And what he did that at the very end prior to signing it, and that was probably the deal that was made. We'll go to the 6 years if you expand this section for the other ag people. And so he did that. So that's how the log truck bill got on that, because it's not a tax-based issue. It was just a registration issue on weight. Right. But it was an agricultural issue. So he expanded it, which was good because it helped agriculture. So, and agriculture is one of the major contributions to our state. That cattle,
largest single industry in the state.
It is.
Yep. So, tourism and agriculture are the two biggies, and especially with agriculture when you count in the forestry end of it, because hey, so many farms.
It's like a $40 billion business. 40,000 employees in the state. You know, when you look at sawmills, the barrel industry, this everything as a whole.
One question on that I had, and this is important to folks, and particularly in your district, South Missouri, is the issue of tax credits for ethanol production. Does he know if that is included as part of that?
I don't know. I know that I have to look. That is an issue, and I know there was some talk on that about how they provide tax credits. There was some for biodiesel at one time, and I think it got taken off. That's always talked about the ethanol, and how what I want to say might have been on there was that the gas station was allowed to get a tax credit if they sold so much. If I'm not positive on that one.
I just wondered, because I know that is one of the rubs within agriculture is tax credits to encourage more ethanol production with corn. It just serves to drive corn up in price a little bit more, and as corn goes up, cattle goes down. I mean, that's just
I agree with that. So I think do we
artificially
start using our food source as a gas?
That's right.
Instead of a food source.
If we were if our country was using all available resources to produce our own fuels, it would be one thing.
We can do that.
But we could do more producing our own fuel without using
elections
corn.
have results, right?
That's
Consequences,
right.
I guess
That's
you
right.
could say.
That's right. We're not going to get political though here. Right.
I'm just saying that's
I
not
know.
political.
Yep. Nope.
You got me
That's
on an
another
election,
fact.
right? 'Cause
That's
you
another
vote.
fact right there. That's another fact. But at any rate, I just wanted, because that question periodically comes up in different discussions, and even amongst our commissioners that we have a lot of commissioners in North Missouri, and they're 100% for every tax credit they can get for ethanol production from converting corn to ethanol. And those of us in the southern part of the state, in cattle country, we go, hold the bus, hold the bus, hold the bus. No, you want to raise the price of corn even more. It's already $7 a bushel. And as corn goes up, cattle goes down. And cattle is a huge, major part of it. In agriculture, you have grains, cattle, and timber. I mean, those are the three main facets of agriculture.
Well, Missouri is one of
So-
the top 3 producers of cattle every year.
Yep,
I mean,
in
in
the
the top
top.
3 could be the top 1, top 3rd. It's on that. So
Sometimes we're second only to Texas. Sometimes we're third with Oklahoma.
So yeah, I mean,
Texas,
it's just
Oklahoma, Missouri.
it's a vital thing for Missouri.
In cows.
Cows,
If you start counting all cattle, then you start counting the feedlots and things get kind of
Yeah,
fuzzy
we
there.
won't-
But
we won't-
in cows, cow numbers, where it's amazing. Missouri's right up there.
And I can discuss. I've been getting a lot of questions about what's on the ballot coming up.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you got Amendment 3, Amendment 4, and Amendment 5. I think most people are asking about. I mean, I can address that. If you want that. Amendment 3 is basically legalizing marijuana usage, recreational marijuana. I'm been in law enforcement for 28 years. Medical marijuana, I can understand. If there's a need for somebody to have a need for that, I think it might, if it helps them in their medical issues. I just feel that you're seeing commercials that, and I'm going to say that I saw a commercial that says it's going to help law enforcement, which is so deceiving in some ways, because all it's going to do is escalate law enforcement issues in homeless and theft and burglaries and other issues that come right along with that. Driving under the influence. I mean, I don't want to keep somebody from, if they want a recreational use, but the misinformation they're saying that police are going to benefit from the Amendment 3 is by far way off.
Not gonna happen.
So a couple of things, I'm on the Prevention Coalition, and they've been talking about the potency of marijuana since the 60s to now, and even some of these derivatives like Dave's Doobies and things of that nature, which basically you're getting these levels that exceed 5 to 6, maybe even 10 times more than it used to be when these people may even have got arrested. So they're saying that's not really true, that they're not going to be affected in recreational marijuana. But then the other thing is that now the state is they ask for the release of these people who are charged with marijuana or were convicted of marijuana offenses that were not criminal. And how much money was put out to prosecute these people? That was the law at the time. You don't throw that law out, do you?
Well, there's several different issues there that we were talking about, and we'll talk about the expungement first. The problem I see with the expungement, sure, they were caught with marijuana, and they say it's a harmless act, but the problem is lots of time when you prosecute somebody, if they're charged with second-degree assault, this and that, they may get charged with the marijuana charge instead of the assault. I mean, there's wheels.
Drop it down,
they
right?
wheel and deal with that. So it's kind of a misleading thing. Are we going to expunge the guy who beat his wife up, but he had marijuana, and they charge him with marijuana because he would plead guilty to that, but he really has an assault charge that he's going to get expunged, so then he has nothing on his record as far as that goes. I mean, so that's the things that you got to talk about expungement on when you're getting, it's not, when they get charged with that may, or plead to that crime, that may not be the totality of what they did. Right. So you're expunging that. So that means, and I get right back to, if there was a crime and it was not victimless, they had a victim, that victim's getting can't rely on the system anymore, because that's what we promised them when we passed the law. This is what happened. This is what the prosecutor did, and they're expunging that. I've stopped many people with a misdemeanor amount of marijuana. I mean, I probably know a lot of people that actually smoke it. Mm-hmm. They're good, decent people. That's their thing.
Their vice.
Is that is that hold that against them because they get caught? I don't know. I mean, it's just. But when you talk about expunging, it's more deep than what we think because the prosecutor has the ability to reduce it to something, and we don't get to see everything that was really charged with.
Well, here's the part I see in that, though, is if they were using it at that time and it was illegal, then they were buying it at that time and it was illegal, and the people they were buying it from knew that it was illegal and it was illegal to be selling it, and the people that would sell that stuff at that time would also deal and sell in other stuff. So they were supporting a whole more. It's deeper than that. What they were supporting goes much deeper than just buying a toke.
Yeah, or buying a nickel bag, right?
It's the whole industry. And worse, way worse stuff than the marijuana that was being supported by that. So anyway, but back to the bill. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a small portion in that bill that's buried. If you look and try to find the whole text, it is huge. You'll absolutely go stark glassy-eyed trying to read the whole. But there is a small portion in it that has to do with something about having to be appointed some social justice person equity officer included in that will be appointed to look over.
And the problem with that is that nobody knows what that is. I mean, that's what's scary about that. Nobody can give you the definition of that person.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. What is an equity officer?
And I've inquired about that. Well, it's just somebody to oversee, but what does it really mean? I mean, if you get into that bill, there's some social equity things in that bill that, we're going down that path in society as it is. Social equity and loan banks are coming up with that. I don't want to get off the subject, but they have to look at your social equity status, and they get preference over a loan. I think we're going down a tube that we don't really need to go down. If you can afford to pay the loan back, that's what you should not, you should just fill the application out. But this social equity thing, there's places in Missouri that's going to be allowed to sell because of their social equity issues, and that's basically your economic status in certain areas. And is that fair? I don't know, but it's the way to get the vote, for one. So that scares me too, because there's no definition, and the wordage equity officer is that key word that you're always seeing, social equity, these things that go right down that path. Is I don't want to go down that path. I can't. But it got on the ballot, and what's scary is if you have $2 million, you can get just about anything on the ballot. And
there's the problem.
If you see it, there ain't a lot of money that's vote for no. I mean, there's very few business. I called yesterday about the state parties. None of them are fighting it. Farm Bureau's neutral on it. There's a lot of this stuff going on that things happen because nobody's stepping up, So, and who wrote the bill is usually the people that are selling and whatnot, And like I said, medical marijuana, the way they did that, I wouldn't agree, but it got on the ballot. People passed it, so I'm going to support it. I mean, so if this does pass as a representative, I'm going to uphold what they pass, and I'm going to do everything I can to make everybody safe and the rest of the citizens safe from any harm that can come from that. But, it is up to the people to vote and what they think it's going to go. I do think the legislature, if it does not pass, the legislature should step up and say, we need to do something to do this, because if the people that put the initiative forward, it's always in their benefit, and it's always not necessarily, in my opinion, as law enforcement, the best for all the citizens. It's more good for the special groups and economy part. And not like to say, I've toured both the grow operations and the dispensaries. They're very well managed. They're very well regulated, which is good for the state as far as that goes. So I have no problem with what we have for that part. But it is a concern for safety for me being in the patrol on them issues. And the commercials, just people need to think of their heart and talk to people and see what they think about it. But the commercials are very misleading.
Well, and if people think that doesn't affect you when you drive, they're all worried about drinking and driving. You think smoking and getting high is not going to affect your driving, and they're trying to actually push that. And I'm thinking you guys are far off base as you can be, because it's the same thing.
It's very difficult when you're dealing with alcohol. Is a lot easier to detect.
It is.
For 5 years in the patrol, I never arrested anybody for illegal use of drugs because it was so hard. It just you have to figure out impairment. And like I was in a meeting the other day, now when you arrest somebody for under the influence of marijuana or any other type of drug besides alcohol, you have to be a specialized officer to gauge that, which takes that away from, blood pressure, this, and that, to prove that they were under the influence. I always thought if they're impaired, that's all I need, but the courts don't necessarily go with that.
Right.
So, and then too, if they're expunging all that, what are we going to do with that?
But do you see that possibly changing?
What's
if
that?
They're going so the legislature in react, and I'm hypothetically thinking here. So let's just say they pass the bill, gets out there, and then all of a sudden we have to figure out a level that becomes an intoxication level that the legislature is going to have to figure that out.
When marijuana and on any type of illicit drugs, the amount of alcohol is easier because they've done them studies. Marijuana, you can have that in your system for up to 3 weeks, they say. So what's the percentage of impairment? I don't know if they'll ever be able to do that with marijuana. I mean, I think we're just going to have to use the officer's observations and the inability of the subject to do the test that you're doing. I mean, that's what I did later on. I never had no specialized training on that. I said, this guy can't walk, he can't turn, and he was on opioids, right? And that's what I said. He was impaired. I don't know what he was impaired on, but he could not do these tests, and he could not drive. So you just don't have the driver's license suspension portion, because in the state, if it's over 08, you get your license suspended.
Right.
When it's a drug, they don't get that. I mean, so that might... trying to figure out, and they've talked to me about that in legislature the first year I was up there. How do we do that? I says, that's real hard because there's no set number for cocaine. There's no set number for marijuana in your system, percentage in your system to make you impaired.
But is that going to make somebody have to go find that? Because, as well as I do, if this gets out of control, you're going to have, we're already seeing fatalities go up, correct?
Yeah.
So fatalities are already going up because of cell phone usage. They're not banning cell phones, and they're not going to, but people, that's why it's happening, guys. Texts, and especially in these younger people, when you see it, you know what they're doing when they have these accidents. They're running off the road on a straight stretch. They're texting. That they're doing something with that cell phone. You know it. That's all they've got.
Well, we just need to say if cell phone's going over 30 miles an hour, it just dings.
Well,
what I mean?
See, I often thought you could actually build a vehicle right now that'll kill your cell phone reception.
Well,
Bang, and you hit a certain speed, they can just eliminate it. Well, then they're building more and more Wi-Fi into these vehicles to make it even worse.
Yeah.
So what good is that? They're not doing anything. They're not doing anything to prohibit that. They're just telling you not to do it. Well, that's great, but it's not working. And so, what are you going to do? Even though if you're over 21, you can text in your vehicle in the state of Missouri, and they can't do a thing. You can go do anything you want. They haven't changed that law.
They try,
but they haven't changed it.
I know.
So if you can still do that, and you are a hazard on the road. You see it all the time. I'm sure you see it on the highway. You see somebody just veer off another lane, and then all of a sudden they're on their phone and they're trying to get back. They could have hit somebody right then and there.
I agree. I mean, it's just, as law enforcement, we can pass cell phone usage, but usually we had to see them doing some kind of act, going over the center line, just like we did, just like reaching down for the radio or eating food. You get into them same issues. It's like,
well, when they're holding a phone to their head, it's pretty easy to see.
Yeah.
Nowadays when you can actually talk into your car,
Yep.
It may not be as bad, but that's not taking your eyes off the road. But when you got this distraction up here,
I know it is. It is
and I'm not saying there's not a time. I love it when I watch people actually pull off the road and take their cell phone calls. That's what you're supposed to do. Get off on the shoulder. Take your call.
Generally, they're doing that, though, because they don't want to lose the call, because there's dead spots
Well,
on the road.
that's
coming
true
up to
too,
lose,
right
right?
there.
So you pull over so you don't lose the call. I'm just being honest. We know that's the case.
But I see a lot of people that when they're getting a call, either they'll call them right back and they'll pull over on a shoulder, and you see it on the highway all the time now.
Yeah.
But when I see these people driving down the road, and they're not driving for a short period of time, they're driving for an extended period of time, trying to talk on a cell phone, you cannot pay attention to what's going on that road. You cannot.
I know. I agree.
And so if you're talking about distracted driving, there you go. So my thing is that by passing laws, you have to create other laws to keep them in control. I guess that's my whole point.
Then you gotta
and that's going to go falling back on the legislature.
And then it has to
come
go
up with an
back, falls
idea.
back on law enforcement to enforce that, and it just becomes, it's just
It's another vicious circle.
It is. I mean, do we have enough to? I think we could take a bunch of laws off the book, and I'm not pointing fingers, but we got 5 DWI laws. Per first time, prior, persistent, chronic, and aggravated.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think after your third one, why do we need a chronic and aggravated? Because, the legislator says, oh, we're tough on DWIs, so we need another one. Well, how do I want to say this? This needs to be, third one needs to be done something with, instead of passing it to the fifth and fourth and fifth.
When we have our audit, I've had auditors tell me that there are statutes on the books that the county we're required to comply with all the various statutes, and they point out that unfortunately though there are statutes that conflict with the existing statutes, and so the county we end up basically, and office holders all end up having to pick the one we're going to comply with and the one that we're not going to comply with, and as one auditor told me one time, said you'll probably never ever get an excellent audit rating, because to get an excellent you have to be not found out of compliance with any statute. And they said, and I've never figured out how a county could ever conduct business and not be conflicting with some statute that's just sitting there. And we see this all the time. We've talked about it this week. But back on the marijuana thing, this issue of recreational marijuana and the problems with law enforcement having to deal with other states that have already done it. And I've seen and heard different things. Colorado battling that very issue. They're trying to enforce the impairment issues on the road under the influence of marijuana, this stuff, and it's a battle that other states have fought. I don't know. I wouldn't say successfully yet, but it's an separate issue that comes up on how to address it.
I think it's coming.
Yep.
I mean, I think it's coming no matter what we want, but it should. I don't feel it should be in our Constitution. I mean, if it really comes down to yes and no, I think the legislature, that's what you elect us to do for the best of the people, and by letting it go to the constitutional ballot, it is not, you don't get a voice in, we don't get a voice in trying to manage it to make it safe for everybody as a whole. It's special. Certain groups of people are going to make the money and benefit from this, and I don't hold that against people to make money. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they'll make money if the legislature goes in there and does it, but it would be well regulated, and it would make it safer for the roads and everything as a whole. Right now, it's going to be very difficult if it passes for us legislature to make any changes to it that benefit or that help the citizens of the state.
Well, but I guess I go back to my point is, okay, so they pass it, but then if there's something that goes wrong in that bill or something else, it comes back to the legislature,
Yes.
and you guys have to fix it.
Yes.
But it wasn't you guys that passed it. It wasn't the legislature that
Well,
made this.
unfortunately, if it's in the Constitution,
The
then no.
Constitution, we got to take it back to the people to change it is the problem.
Well,
that's
but
why
it may be enforcement, or because what you're talking about, with a social equity, there's no true definition of that. So now you're going to have an equity officer. Well, what does that mean? There is no true definition of that.
You're right.
So when you start looking at that bill, there's going to be areas in that bill that are vague. Now all of a sudden, the legislature or the courts have to interpret that vagueness.
The courts will have to do that because it's going to be in their Constitution. When it comes back to changing anything that's constitutional, there's several things I've tried to do with conservation that it's constitutional, right? Mm-hmm. So we have to take that back to the people of the HJR. So that's what we would have to do if this passes and there's issues there that we need to fix. We'll have to take it back to the people to vote on it. I mean, and rightfully so. The people are the ones that get to vote. They get to decide how Missouri goes forward. I'm here to represent. If it does pass, I'm going to do everything I can to make everybody safe. If it doesn't, then we really need to step up and take the bull by the horns and make it safe for everybody, because it'll come back. It'll come back again.
Well, and even though, like you're saying, it may have to go in front of the courts and things of that nature, your constituents are still going to complain to you because you are their representative and you have, say, a state constitution.
There is no complaints. Everybody just has a concern.
Yeah, well,
in my department, I'm just kidding.
So even if it's just a concern, it's going to be a concern. And I'm not saying it's just on this issue. It's on any issue. That if they have their concerns, they're coming back to you. You have no control over this.
If it's a constitutional issue, yes. There's a lot of things I deal with on a daily basis that's out of my control in the federal government and things like that. But I work through and try to get them an answer. It's frustrating me just like it is to them.
Kind of like being a commissioner.
Yeah.
It's all same. Well, again, that was just my point, is how much extra work, though, when you pass something, it changes everything.
Oh, always.
It changes
There's
everything.
always something that's going to change.
And people never look what that's going to change. They don't really have any idea what that means, except what it means to them. And they vote yes or vote no, whatever they vote,
Well,
and say, well, it's because I don't like it or I like it. But they don't realize what that's going to affect in the state of Missouri, our incarceration system, where these people are going to go. Like you mentioned, the deals that were made, it's because somebody would plead guilty to this, and maybe that person, maybe they're rehabilitated by now, but maybe they're not. What's going to happen?
Well, the fact is, it got on the ballot, but it got on the ballot by people signing initiative petition. And I can tell you, nobody that signed that read the pages and pages and pages of real fine print with all the stuff in it to put it on the ballot.
Legalize marijuana, and they signed it.
You want to be legal to smoke pot? Sign this. And off it goes. It takes a very small number of people to sign a deal anymore.
180,000, I think, out of six congressional districts.
Right. So as a percentage deal, it takes a very small number basically to get it
Doesn't
on
sound
there.
like
And
a
there's
majority
big
of the
money. There's big
population.
money in there, and people were paid good money to go out and get these signatures enough so that they could get it on the ballot.
Yeah.
And there you go.
$2 million. Basically, we had that and wanted something, we can do that. And no, getting right back to the petition initiative thing, that's something we need to look at because, it's not, we don't want to take the voice away from the people to change the Constitution, but we shouldn't make it so easy to put something in the Constitution as petition initiative should be 51% of the registered voters or something instead of,
So in the bill, what is marijuana defined as? Because there's derivatives of marijuana, you well know as I do.
It would have to be a definition in there about the percentage and whatnot. Getting back to the strength of it, when I started in '92, we saw a lot of the stuff coming out of Mexico was 3 to 5, 7%. It got up to 23% because of the way it was. They were not the leaves. They weren't using the leaves. They were using the buds.
Synthetics and synthetics
buds,
now too.
So it's an issue. I mean, I wish everybody that wanted to do it recreational just stayed home and smoked it in their house, and we wouldn't be having issues.
Yeah.
I mean that's the problem, But it's kind of like it. Alcohol, tobacco is a gateway drug, and I can go into my dare spew on that. Is when I was a trooper, I wish I would have counted how many people did not smoke that I arrested for driving while under the influence. I bet there's 2 in 28 years that did not smoke that drank. I mean, so it just goes to, and I haven't seen a lot of people that smoked marijuana that didn't smoke cigarettes first, and then the people that did the harder opioid drugs started with cigarettes, marijuana. It's just a stepping stone. People don't start with the hard stuff. They work their way up to it, and now the kids are gonna, if it's legalized, I'm sure there's gonna be an age, but they're gonna think it's no big deal. In high school, one person I know smoked that out in the open, and it was kind of shocking. And now the kids say that it's kind of more of a accepted thing. So,
But again, back there when it was illegal, the people buying it, the people selling the illegal marijuana would be would be very happy to set you up with the more profitable, harder
doubt about
harder
that.
drug stuff. So it's a stepping stone to the deal. But anyway, back on budget stuff though. I'm going to make a pitch. I'm glad the commissioners are all glad the state's doing better money wise. So we're looking forward to an increase in per diem and picking up the cost of keeping state prisoners.
For you guys?
You're going to.
That's just
Per diem for state prisoners.
You're right. Yeah.
Well,
Per diem reimbursement for state. But that leads me into the deal for next year. That's the segue for that.
I'm not done.
What's up? No.
I know you're
I'm
not
kidding.
done.
I'm kidding.
No, you go ahead, whatever. But
No,
at some point, what do you see as maybe major issues for discussion for next year? I mean, I've never really heard, or maybe haven't got to. You just finally got through the special session and the veto session and all that, and catching your breath a little bit. But I know legislators are thinking about the pre-filing of bills that takes place here, in December,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth.
Yes.
And what are kind of what do you see maybe?
Well, talking to the the future speaker elect. We'll probably elect him in November. That's how our election process goes. He's got a big push on crime, because if you look at the cities, I was in a meeting yesterday with a Kansas City prosecutor. They've had 160 shootings, homicides already this year, and 30 more in Jackson County. So you're looking at 190 homicides in Kansas City this year, and 650, I think, shootings that didn't die in Kansas City alone. And in St. Louis, it's a lot worse, right? So the incoming speaker has made it a priority to look at how we might be able to reduce that, because that affects the whole state,
sure,
in some ways. So I think crime is going to be a big one, because in some of these crime, you got businesses leaving, all this stuff. So economic issues, people won't come to St. Louis and these towns if that's happening. I think that's going to be an issue talked about. Legislative-wise, I think that's kind of where I'm at on that. I haven't heard a whole lot more about what his priorities are. I think our priorities in the Republican Party are going to be petition initiative, because seems like $180,000, 80,000 votes to get on the ballot is very minuscule, and you can get them out of the 4 major cities in the state, and that's where the big issue is rural versus urban. I mean, that's what we got to fight for. That's what I fight for, is our rural values and the keeping things, because they want their values to spread out here, and we want to stop that from happening. So, and I'm working on legislation that in the next future. I got some bail reform, which goes right along with they're letting people out without anything and they're committing crimes again. So that's part of that crime prevention stuff. And then some of the other stuff I worked with last year, speed limits on county roads, which I've talked to Darrell about. It would save the counties lots of money having put signs up. If everybody doesn't know, the state speed limit on a county road is 55 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't say that.
Unless
we post it
otherwise.
We do a lot of that, but it shouldn't be 55 miles an hour on a gravel road.
That happened back when they did the speed limit changes, day-night stuff, and they changed that, and that was just, I think, an oversight. But I think there's a lot of counties in the state that would help to reduce it to 40 unless posted. So then, we as state troopers and can actually enforce the 40 instead of the 55 if you check them at 50 on a county road. But then they don't have to post every road to 40. It's just going to save the counties a lot of money. I think that's a smart thing to do. I mean,
and streamline the thing so that it's easier for every law enforcement to know.
Yes.
What
if it's not posted, it's 40. I mean, because when I'd get out here, I'm thinking, which is it, 25 on this one? What is it? And I have to see that.
Well, we can put signs up, but they get stolen. So, if it's set just lower, then it helps on the enforcement side and save us some money. And I'm going to try to I'm going to refile the 20% land purchase bill. I don't know if I talked about that before. If the government owns more than 20% in each county, to acquire any more land in that county, they have to go to the county commission for approval. I think that just puts local control back into, and if when is government-owned land more than enough for certain counties? I mean, I think it financially affects them in more ways than what they want to say. There's numerous counties in your area or in this area that have a lot more than 20%. Shanna, you're right. There's 8 in the state that's right around 20 or more. Right. I mean, it only affects 8 counties. Those are generally south of Missouri. And they're rural counties, and they're poor counties. I mean, but it really throttles economic development. The state owns it, and they want to tout tourism, which is I'm not going to take tourism away from these rural areas. That's what drives some of our rural economy is the rivers and the beauty of our area. But at what point is enough? Right. Well, when you look at Denton County, you've got Mark Twain National Forest. That's national. Huge. Then you got the National Park Service. And again, that's national. And you got a lot of conservation areas. Indian trails, 13,000 acres. Trails, right. And you've got a lot of those different things. So when you start looking at Denton County, it's a lot more than 20%. And I'm just saying that's. I think it's like right around. Last time I looked, it was 19 something. If you look at the total area percentage that we have, the federal lands too. Yeah, all that.
So, I mean, so we're in that real 19, 20, 21.
I thought it was like 22%.
It may be. The last thing I had from a study showed somewhere right at 19.6 or something.
Okay.
But I'd have to dig into that. That's why it's so close. I don't
Yeah.
think that's counting the highway department and all that stuff either, but because that takes away from that. But
There's also the issue, and you've brought up before and looked at the fact that Missouri Department of Conservation, they own thousands and thousands of acres timberland. They sell timber. They pocket all the money from the timber.
oh,
Correct?
you want me to go there?
Hey,
I will
we're
go
just
there.
talking about. Well, you know, still that's
Well,
something
it
to think
is.
about.
It is frustrating to me is our conservation, and I'm not going to bash on our conservation department. You know, they do a very excellent job when it comes to managing our forest and our wildlife. I mean, I'm not take. I can't. You can't.
And I'm going to
take
make
that
a
away
plug.
from
I think they're helping us. I think they're really seriously trying to help us on the feral hog issue.
And so, I mean, I have
Do a lot
no
of good
problem
work.
with that. It's just the problem I see is sometimes they put their mission before some of the issues that we have. And I'm going to, for example, because I know this for example, you know, they logged the Indian Trails up here, I think 2 years ago. I think they took somewhere around $132,000 worth of their part, right?
Oh, board feet out.
No, that's money.
Oh, okay.
Money they made, right? And did you guys get any of that money, Darrell?
Not that I'm aware of.
So,
Now,
okay.
I will make a caveat.
They do give gravel.
We do get about usually every year between $15,000-$20,000 reimbursement for gravel that has to be put on roads that access their areas. Now, Indian Trail, all the roads in there are actually MDCs, and they're responsible for maintenance and upkeep of all those roads that you drive down through Indian Trail. We never took those over. That's their baby. But we did 15 or 20,000. But that's it. That's it.
So, I mean, you're going down that. I mean, I've been, and like I said, I am not bashing conservation because some of the things they do, but I think sometimes they should give back more than what they take. But if you look at Shannon County, in the last 3 years prior to this year, they took over $2 million worth of timber, their part, out of Shannon County, right? That's my district. That's the MDC's part. Shannon County didn't receive any of that money, right, as far as from the timber sales.
Right.
And they're one of the poorest counties in the state. And that's one of their natural resources that they have. And I just think it's an
It's a
injustice.
commodity, like we talked about
It's
before.
injustice for them counties that have them resources and the state agency, I'm going to say rapes them on it. That's just, I don't know what other word to say. They may disagree with me, but they threw the Constitution in my face and they says, look, it says we can manage this and we can do this. So the Constitution says that. We voted that in. So,
Well,
we
there's
have
one
to
thing
live-
to manage it,
Going
but should
back
they
to
be
what I said
profiting,
before.
and see,
profiting
and
greatly?
that's my contention on that is to figure out how that would be addressed. I mean, the federal government, and you know this, when they log the national forest, they give Rural Schools Act money to you
Secure
guys.
Rural Schools Act money.
So some of that money from the national forest, when they log it, comes back to the county. And none of it from the conservation comes back to the county as far as a direct correlation with the timber sales. From what I understand, this next year, they're supposed to do 15 million board feet in the state, is what their estimated part is, right? So conservation's part that they'll get to take above and beyond the 8-cent sales tax that they get, or was that 8 cents, is that right? Will be $6 million worth of timber sales in the state of Missouri. I mean, throughout the state, they will pocket $6 million from timber sales. And I just feel that money, or 75% of that money, should go back to the county in which it was logged or taken, because that's their natural resources.
Their trees.
If it was
And
at
I don't
least
know
half,
if,
it
I
would
don't
be
know
an
if you
great
realize
improvement.
that Indian Trails up here was obtained prior to 1977, so they don't even pay PILT tax on that, on
Don't make any-
13,000 acres.
no
I mean,
payment
so
of tax.
when is our state agencies taking advantage of the people in that district? Our 4th district has to pick up the emergency services on that 13,000 acres, whatever that would be, $5, $10, $12,000. But then people have to pick that up to pay for their school, right? And that's why I was elected to represent the people, and I'll stand up and fight for the people on them issues. My job isn't to fight for the conservation on these issues, but I feel it's an injustice when they're taking all these natural resources out of these rural counties and not investing it straight back. And I've asked them, tell me what you have invested in the timber industry in your department. Well, it's so convoluted. Well, that's not my problem. I want to know what you spend on that. And if it's okay, if they're going to get $6 million and you give 75% of that back to the county, you're getting $1.5 million to do timber next year, and the counties can take that money and use it for what they need.
Right.
And I'm passionate about that because I just feel it's just an injustice.
But you're fighting the Constitution.
I think I'm not. I think I'm not fighting. In their minds, I'm fighting the Constitution.
Right.
In my minds, I'm fighting for the people because they are abusing. I don't think the Constitution, when the people voted on that, their intent was to let them take resources out of a county and pocket it.
But that's what I was talking about earlier. It's the repercussions of when they pass these laws. And it falls back on the legislature to try and fix
and
this.
in the 70s, when they passed that, I guess our conservation, they are fluent with money if you look at what their budget is and what they bring in. And I'm not faulting them. That's what we said. But I feel they should live by what the 8-cent sales tax is, right? Or what their tax that we voted in. Not the Highway Patrol can't go out here and take the car from somebody and pound it and sell it and keep the money. That goes back to the county or or how that works. I mean, it just seems like the state is benefiting from our natural resources when really they should not. And that's where my whole contention, and I told the conservation liaisons, that's where I'm at.
And they've been out here for years now, buying farms and buying woodlands and properties, many times at below appraised value, getting good, sweet deals on that, then forever after never paying the property taxes that would have been collected had it stayed in private hands, while all the time then going ahead then and selling the natural resources and making money hand over fist. I mean, they're like a private entity.
If you logged in trails that was yours and you made $138,000, you would have to pay tax on that.
Right.
Because of income tax, right?
And you'd have to pay property tax on that property.
But you know what I'm saying. So
right. I get it.
So
I understand exactly.
And like I said, it's just frustrating. The biggest frustration I have is I feel state agencies feel their mission is more important than the citizens in the state. Last year I had a bill, and a state agency opposed my bill because they felt it would negatively affect their mission. But the mission itself was affecting the people in that district. I mean, that's where I feel is everything that every state agency should do, how does that affect the state people, right? First. That should be the first. If it negatively affects the people, they can't do it. They should not be able to do it, or it doesn't benefit the people. So that's where I'm at. You got me on my tangent on that one because I've worked real hard on that because I just think it's an injustice to the people in the counties that are being taken advantage of.
Well, and for these small rural counties,
it is.
Huge.
Well, Shannon County is the poorest, and they got that much money out of that they got taken out.
And back to the tourism deal, there are counties, and I always look at this and think about this because they always point out, well, they own these lands and it's from the tourism benefit and all that. There are counties, and you look at when you come down from Jeff City, you cross the Gasconade River. The Gasconade River has a huge tourist industry up and down the Gasconade River. Merrimack does too. But you know what? The state and federal government doesn't have to own all the land, doesn't have to own the river and own all the land on either side for there to be a thriving tourism industry, right? You can have that land in private ownership, a thriving agriculture industry going on along that river, cattle, corn, crops, hay, while also having a thriving tourism. One's not mutually exclusive of the other. They can coexist. But there seems to be this mentality that, well, if we're going to have tourism, we got to have the state or federal government own it. And that's just not true.
There's that 30 for 30. By 30, you knew that, right?
What's that?
They want to have 30% of the land owned by the government by 2030.
I've heard that.
That's the kind of thing that worries me.
Well, always what I ever hear about that, Darrell, is we're better stewards of the land than the people are because we're not going to pollute it, we're not going to do this, and we're going to keep the rivers safe. And that's not true. But they try and tell you that we're better stewards of the land. Yet when you go see some of the areas down in National Park Service, they're eroded out and they're not even maintained. Like, how can you guys tell us you're better stewards? And then they don't even live by the contracts that they make.
Well,
the National Park Service violated their contract long ago. When you look at the town of Cedar Grove, what do you see? There's nothing there. They're supposed to rebuild rebuild that town and actually make it as a tourist area. It's gone. It rotted away. But those buildings were there for years. When I came down here in the 80s, those buildings were still here. And they could have done something, but they never did.
Yep.
And then when you ask them about it, they don't know anything about it. National Park Service said, well, we don't remember any of that. It's right here in the contract. Read it.
It's real hard to fight. I mean, I don't want to seem like an extremist by any means, but I mean, our state should have the ending say-so in anything that happens in our state, really. I mean, but whenever the federal government comes and they start dictating what the state can do and can't do, it just, why is Missouri Missouri?
Mm-hmm.
If they're telling us what to do, I understand we're the United States, but it's just very frustrating.
That's a whole separate issue there, all up and down the riverways, Shannon County to Lower Dent County, and you run into some of this, why this issue blew up so big on the scenic byways thing, with an entity that I think at heart they probably have well-meaning, but they don't understand, or actually I think some of them do. They choose not to look, but the people promoting like the scenic byway that was to run through Iron and Washington and all the way across Shannon County and then down to Oregon County, then all the way across Howell, and many of the people when they finally got wind and read all of you got to read all of the pieces and what it does allow them to do if they choose to pursue and stuff, and it strips people of their rights and does some things, and they go, no, we're sick of the government. People said, we're sick of the government down here telling us we can't do this, and this, and you telling us it's for our own good. So
You want to say on that
anyway.
ethanol thing, that 5 cent per gallon is for E15 and E85 starting January 1st for 6 years for retailers.
And it's a tax credit.
Yes, for retailers.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Retailers get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
5 cents a gallon.
If they sell
5
it.
cents a gallon.
Yeah.
So for E15 and E85.
If we have if it's funded, right? I'm pretty sure it's going to be.
Well, it's supposed to start January 1st. I'm not
they
going
put
into the whole bill.
Oh, gotcha.
I'm just.
I'm pretty sure
that's
there's a
what was
certain
passed.
I got you.
So there you go. So I thought I'd look that up just to
Appreciate that.
verify because you said retailer. I thought
knew
that was what it was
retail or
too.
something,
But
I just didn't know exactly how it
5
ended
cents
up.
a gallon.
So.
That's good. Help the price of gas. Help drive the down a little, but raise the price of corn. That's the whole deal. Anyway, that's fine.
One
Whatever.
thing or another.
And I know Farm Bureau was big pushing this. The corn growers, the crop people love those deals. So anyway,
Amendment 3, that's about it. Amendment 4 is police. Kansas City's trying to defund the Kansas City Police Department, and Amendment 4 is just kind of addressing that. Kind of in a way struggle with that because it's the legislators can keep them from defunding the police, but I think some of that is if Kansas City keeps doing that, it's going to affect the whole state as far as the safety and whatnot. So it gives them some authority so they won't defund the Kansas City police away.
Does the legislature fund Kansas City Police?
No, they do not. I don't think so.
No. So and same way St. Louis County.
Well, St. Louis is different in some way, because I think they have their own little. I can't remember exactly how that works. St. Louis is a little bit different than Kansas City.
I just always thought it kind of a strange deal where the legislature has so
I'm
much
with you.
say in how a local municipality funds.
I think that
their
was
local
the way
police.
I understand that, and the way I took it, and the way I look at that is by defunding that. We're here to protect the totality of the whole state and citizens. So if one entity is doing something that's hurting the citizens I know the city is in charge of that, but if it's obviously negatively affecting the city and this group doesn't care, maybe is it our job to step in sometimes? I'm just saying. I understand where you're at on that, but
Yeah, it's just
it's showing that
strange news.
crime is going up, the less the police and the more defending and all that stuff. And is it defunding the police a political statement from these groups just for what certain reason, right, to defund them to get a vote and whatnot, instead of
some of them
looking
wanna
out for the
promote
best
that.
interests of the people?
Yeah.
But that's basically, it affects Kansas City and Kansas City only. Amendment 5 is the National Guard. Currently, they're under Public Safety Director, and they're wanting to put them under their own director of the National Guard Director. Kind of makes sense, I think it's a good division. Looking at it as a whole is if we have one director over all the police and the National Guard, they control everything. At least this is a stopgap in some ways. If the National Guard wants to do something that against the people, at least we might have the police to say to stop that, or vice versa. So I think Amendment 5 is not a bad thing. I can't find nothing really that I would oppose Amendment 5 on, because dividing them keeps one person from being in charge of every
law enforcement.
Every person who has a gun that's illegally has a gun, right?
Yeah.
So
enforcement person.
yeah. So that's where I'm at on that. So them are the amendments on the ballot. I'm getting a lot of questions about them, and that's where I'm at on them. So.
There's the first one that to vote on, though, is the one having to do with the state treasurer, the ability to invest state dollars and so on. And I guess as I hear it, Missouri is one of the few that are so restrictive compared to the other states on how those dollars can be invested and so on. I know think the state treasurer supports it, but
the state treasurer's Fitzpatrick's if you look at his history, he's very knowledgeable about how to invest in things in the future. So I trust him on that type of thing. So if he's thinking it's good for the state, I would say yes. Yeah. So.
Again, the idea is get out and vote.
It is.
However you want to vote.
You got to vote. I mean, and like I said, however it comes out, I'm going to do the best I can no matter what happens. It's just there's probably better ways to put it, and we put a lot of stuff in our Constitution, and in 5 years it may be something that comes to a head, and we have to work on changing some things that we didn't think were going to happen.
Well, that always happens.
Yeah. On legislation-wise, though, it makes it easier to change it from year to year on that than it does the Constitution. And I understand you want to protect that, but I don't understand why certain things.
But come January 1, your district will change from 143rd to 120th, correct?
Yes, it will.
And your representation area will change from Dent, Shannon, Oregon to basically Dent and Crawford.
Yes.
So do you see a lot of change there, even that you've already seen and know were some things because of the Crawford County thing, and that I was just curious, anything that comes to mind that is something that has come to your mind that you need to look at as cause of an issue or thing? Because I know a lot of their commissioners, I know them well and things, so a lot of the things that we've always talked about before was always been pretty heavy on their minds too and stuff. I mean, there's federal lands there and state lands and all these other
I think
issues.
Dan and Crawford seem to be similar in a lot of ways compared, and Shannon and Oregon seem to be a lot of ways, not as much as even though you have the same rural values and whatnot, just difference. And we're closer to the interstate. We have more economic development than Shannon and Oregon. Shannon and Oregon fight for first and second to the last in the state for economic development, right?
Well, Denton and Crawford have more of the same trade territory.
Oh, they do,
together
and they got Merrimack Regional Planning Commission, which makes it a difference. Where Oregon and Shannon had SCOCOG, which is out of Pomona. I mean, so dealing with them is different. So dealing with one Merrimack or Regional Planning Commission is going to make it a little bit easier because you have an idea what everybody has and does and whatnot like that. So, and
our Regional Planning Commission is really, folks
very
that don't
active.
know, is really top notch as far as
things. I'm not saying nothing bad about any of them, but I get emails from them daily, and I'll be honest with you, I share them with the people in my other counties that don't have that because it's the same grant information, because I just don't want them to forget that, because they're working hard. I mean, so, but and I see some of the similarities that Steelville, Bourbon, and Cuba all have chambers that are really wanting to grow their economic development thing, like you guys have, Sally Burbridge and whatnot here to do that. They're working on them things, and I see the similar mindset to move forward on them things. So
very good.
Yep. Very good.
But I appreciate you having me. I've got a meeting to go to at 10.
You are.
And something later tonight.
So
thank you very much. Thanks, Darrell. Thanks.
I'd say the best of luck in November. I think you're going to.
I said I need one vote, and I don't know if I'm going to vote for myself. Right?
That's what I was going to say. I think it's going to be you're kind of guaranteed that. But the part is that there is no guarantee, and you know as well as I do what you do is that's how people are going to view you.
Oh yeah, I agree, and I just do what I would like my representative to do. I mean, maybe sometimes I've put too much pressure on myself, but being a trooper for 28 years, when people called, you respond back.
Sure.
I mean, instead of putting it off, and so it's just I do what I want them to do, and I'm just trying to do what best for the community.
All right.
Ask Darrell, because the commissioners in the county usually have the thumb on most things. And that's what I told Crawford County. You guys need to tell me what you want next session, because everybody else in the state is going to be asking for stuff. And at the end of the last session, I was just amazed that these people in the cities were asking for $250 million for this, $150 million for this. And I'm like, hold on here. I didn't know that I could do that. I mean, that's one thing about term limits. By the time I get this figured out, you're going to be a new guy. But I'm going to, if I'm here 8 years, right, you know, the next guy coming in, I will walk them in and say, this is what you need to start doing.
I'm going to say that is seriously the problem with term limits, is that it takes quite a while to finally figure out. I mean, I always said this even about school board. When somebody said they'd run and they'd serve one term on school board, you know, one term on school board, you just finally figured out maybe what the acronyms stand for.
I don't know what acronyms for. I always have to ask them, what's that stand for?
But yeah, and, you know, and then even how some of all this works and how to make it work. And the same way, you know, by the time you've been there about 6 or 8 years is where you really know who all the players are and how to make all the pieces come together to help something, and poof, you're gone, out of there.
Like I said, I don't want to be a pawn the whole time I'm there. And my goal is to, you know, be more than just a pawn, and that's kind of what I'm working now.
I mean, be an active player, not a watcher, huh?
Yeah, well, I told somebody I want to be a rook next year, you know, and then maybe the bishop the next year, you know. But yeah, it is. It is.
When you become the queen, that's what I'm going to back
off. Don't even go there.
Yeah, I'm not going to go there.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. Just jump to the king right there.
But no, I'm just saying it's a learning experience, and relationships is the biggest thing in Jeff City. You're learning to. I tell my wife all the time, you know, I go places that I really don't necessarily want to go, but, you know, if I don't have a relationship with somebody and I need something, and a senator I've never talked to, you know, it's kind of hard. You know, if you go up and ask somebody something, who are you? It's hard. So I want them to know who I am and say, hey, I've done this and this and this, and they know that. So build my credibility and get some respect, and hopefully that'll pan off for my district.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, Ron. You can catch the rest of the program
Copeland
on the road on the radio meeting.
I'm going to Rolla.
Oh, well,
Our state
that'll be
representative, Mr. Ron Copeland, we thank him for coming in this morning.
95.7 FM,
Yep.
1340 AM.
My save thing, right?
There you go.
There you go.
Thanks, Ron.
See you, Ron.
Okay.
Take care.
All right.
Very good.
We got a little county business.
Let's do a little county business. Yep.
Yeah. First thing I want to mention, as far as our county business here, I'll just mention, I'll just kind of go down my line here in Road and Bridge. Of course, regular grading and all stuff. We have a contractor who's about done with the $265,000 approximately of chip and seal overlay that was doing. While it's been awfully dry and we'd like to have rain, it's been fantastic weather for getting that done.
Yes.
Can't do it when it's pouring down rain. Anyway, and then they've been cutting brush, they've been installing pipes, they've been busy hauling rock and material and installing crossover pipes on County Road 5600, and that's the Title II, using Title II monies for that project. We did open bids on the flat project down on County Road 5610 to replace the Cooley Bridge. You know, the first time the bids all came in too high and we just couldn't do it. The new bids came in at $399,110 to $1,104,999. The engineer's estimate on the thing was somewhere around $400,000 to $450,000 for that project. So we did. The engineer looked at the bid specs, see that everything was in order, bond specifications and all, and so we did then, upon recommendation from the engineer, accept the $399,110 bid from H.R. Quadri Construction out of Van Buren, Missouri, and they will get started on that just as soon as this is a project. This FLAP is Federal Lands Access Program. It's federal money, has to come through MoDOT as well.
Right.
So as soon as MoDOT then goes ahead and gives final approval to go ahead, the company can get started anytime. And they said if they could get approval soon enough, they might very well get in and have it done by the first of the year.
Yeah.
I think that was probably pretty optimistic, but at least they'll get done. And if
they get started.
When everything gets started, they can get started and they'll get done quicker, so that'll move along.
January, February, usually worse than December.
Usually not, usually not good months for being able to do much construction, but depends on where they're at in the process even to build at that time. If they've got all the concrete poured and all those things done by that time, then it'll move along very quickly.
The last few Decembers we've had have been very mild, and I think that's what he's looking at, and that's why he said, I'd love to get started by December 1st.
Yeah. So, now, we did also have out for bid there to go do the other Federal Land Access Program project on County Road 6670 to asphalt that county road down to Tanbat. on the current river access. Got no bids on that again, so we did extend that bid deadline to October 27th. The engineer felt like some of these companies that might be interested, they're finishing up some of the asphalt work that they already had. There was an immense amount of asphalt work that got put out for bid and was done this summer with MoDOT and other entities. So we'll see how that works out. We'll mention that did attend the SACBA board meeting, and I want to congratulate SACBA, Salem Area Community Betterment Association, on a great fundraiser they had this past Saturday night, the Family Feud, and it was very successful. Want to mention I did attend the Merrimack Regional Planning Commission annual dinner up in Vienna, along with from Dent County. Had Assessor Jamie Holmeyer and her husband Mike. Glad to see them there, and it was a very nice evening. Want to mention too, I did attend last Friday, a week ago today, South Central County Commissioners Association regional meeting at Houston. We meet twice a year down there, and our regional president, Mark Collins, presiding commissioner of Howell County, he will be stepping down. He decided not to run for presiding commissioner again. He's running for collector of Howell County. So he will be stepping down as our regional president as of the end of December. And so I was elected to serve in his place as our regional president until the next election of officers, which will be next spring of 23. But we needed somebody to go ahead and represent the region, because the president of the region serves on the County Commission Association of Missouri board. And there's a couple of board meetings that will take place between January and next spring that we need to have our representative at. So I will serve in that capacity until then. And then at that meeting, we had Ron was there. We had several state reps and senators at that meeting to visit with county commissioners about a lot of the various issues we just talked about here this morning, and a real good visit, and appreciate all them coming. We had sales tax report come in for September, and or for October, I'm sorry. And, last year in October, we had another deal where the Department of Revenue withheld another $197,000 in sales tax. And then they got back to us, they shouldn't, that was a mistake. They wasn't supposed to do that. It was money we owed still, added on to what was previous. But they had agreed not to do that withholding until we got this all hammered out and agreed to as to what the amounts were and how that payback would be done. So at any rate, what I'm getting at, our revenues are up when we compare them to similar months in years past. The revenues are up a good deal as every month they have been this year. To be able to compare them with last year, though, is totally irrelevant because of the Department of Revenue screw up. So at any rate, the monthly sales
well, it's
tax,
even going to be hard to compare them to previous, because those were misstated.
Because of the whole mess. So anyway, and I can say, and I know they're tired of hearing me say this, but we are now really very, very, very close to reaching conclusion on that. We will probably be meeting with, having a closed session discussion with our attorney on this issue Monday to discuss some recent developments on getting this issue brought to a close. So anyway, but revenues look pretty good. And then I want to mention yesterday, one of the things that we've been looking at, considering, we put out for bids for improvements and rehabilitation and things on the exterior of the courthouse. First bids come in $3.5 or so to $5 million to some dollars. It was just totally insane. We did put that out for bid. We got a local we had no local contractors, or even, when I say local, even Dent or Phelps County area bid it before. It was all contractors far out of the area. We did have a couple of months ago or so contract bid from a bid for the job from Alexander Construction over at Rolla, a very reputable firm. Bid it for about $1,647,000. We did earlier approve with moving forward with about $500,000 of that work that would entail work on the brick and mortar parts of the bid. And but we did yesterday in the meeting go ahead and approve proceeding with the rest of that $1.6 million bid. And so people will be seeing some work being done on that. At some point, as they move in to get ready to do that, it's going to require they're going to have a part of that contract was with a firm from Jeff City to come and basically encompass pretty much the whole exterior of the courthouse with scaffolding, so that they're able to get up and down and do everything they need to do. And the reason I mention this is, depending on when they do that and so on, we may have this period of time where it's going to be impossible to have the exterior Christmas lights working
Right,
on the courthouse.
right.
I just don't know how this is going to work out timing-wise, but the work's got to be done, and we're going to get it done. So we got a lot of exterior work that we're going to do on the courthouse, and so I want folks just know that when we're done with it, the last thing that we'll do will be go ahead and install all new Christmas lighting. And well, I say Christmas lighting, you know. I've had people mention that they'd love to see the courthouse lit up all the time. Well, I hate for it to be lit up all the time because, frankly, then you're burning up lights and things, and it's an expensive deal.
Yeah.
But there's times, you know, there's been special occasions, you know, when there was going to be an activity, you know, used to the road rally would finish up and conclude up at the courthouse
Right, had lights
in the
on
evening, and we'd
sometimes.
have the lights on at the courthouse. It's a beautiful, beautiful building, and those white lights that outline all of it, it's beautiful when it's set up. So I'm really anxious. I'm really anxious to get the new lights. The old lights have been there anyway, 25, if not 30
not longer,
years.
Darrell.
They're-
That might be longer
they're-
than I think it was
they're
90s when they
shot.
got put up.
Yeah, and they're just shot, and it's quite a challenge every year to get them working. But at any rate, as they move in and get ready to get the scaffolding up and stuff, at some point now, if they wait till after the first year to get scaffolding up, then maybe not. But I'm suspecting that contractor is going to be having that firm because they really can't get started on all their work until that scaffolding is put up, so they can get up and down and do it. First thing they're going to do, though, as part of this $500,000 we approved, is get work on the brickwork and getting all of the electrical lines that are all overhead and so forth. Get all of those utility lines buried coming into the building so that there's no conflict with that. Trying to get work done. So that's it. I'm really happy to see that getting done. So. Moving up on with that, and so that I've kind of breezed through that because I knew with Ron to be here and we'd
Yeah,
have quite a
a little
discussion
bit.
on state things.
Do want to remind everybody the child support contract service for the
Right.
prosecution with Crawford County was approved.
And that's a
that's a
three-year
3-year deal.
3-year deal that we approve periodically every year to coordinate with Crawford County and share that cost of child support
And
prosecution.
you did attend the
so on.
MRPC annual dinner.
Yeah, Mike and Jamie Holmeyer were there as well. Did attend that.
No awards from Dane County this year.
No, they were all pretty much more locally.
Yeah,
It's a lot of the counties had indicated, you know, they wanted to, and at a time when it's closer to their county where it's going to be held, they would like to do that. Sometimes some of the people they'd like to get there. So we'll look at that. We'll probably we may very well have some here next year.
Well, with a lot of different
So-
things going on, COVID, sales tax issues, all kinds of stuff.
Oh my goodness!
You know,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
There's been a lot of things going on. So,
Yeah.
very
So-
good. I don't really have anything else besides what you just said.
Okay.
So, there we go.
There you go.
All right, very good.
Do appreciate Representative Ron Copeland coming
Yes,
in
we do.
and sharing with us what happened and the good, the bad, and maybe not so good. I'm not going to. And but you know that's just the way it works. That's the nature of it. And look forward to seeing what can be done next year.
Yeah, and you know, just kind of talking about issues. Always remember before you vote on these amendments, please go read them. And down at the clerk's office, we mentioned
Sample ballots are available.
Sample ballots are available, but also the plain language
Uh-huh.
of that is now.
Well, good luck with that.
I hate to tell you this, but it's a big piece of paper.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big poster, and you're going to need to take a picture of it and take it home because they can't make copies of it. So get that, bring your phone, take a picture of it, blow it up, but read it because, like Ron's saying and other people saying, you need to see what's in the fine print just to make sure that you totally understand what you're voting on. And, you know, Darrell, I can't tell you how many times we've all seen that happen. We vote for something, so I never saw that in there.
That's
Well,
right.
if you just read what you see on the ballot, you're not getting the whole picture.
Well, the marijuana amendment has pages and pages,
Pages, yeah, it's
pages
huge.
of stuff that you probably aren't going to see, and that I feel like that, you know, maybe that was
Well,
by
that won't be
design.
on the ballot. The pages and pages
no,
will not
no,
be.
it won't.
So.
So, anyway, but I do want to mention too. Now's the time for those interested in signing up for at the county collector's office to prepay for your taxes, for your county taxes. That can be done.
Have a monthly payment.
Uh-huh. Yep. Have a monthly payment come out, so when you get down to the end of the year, you don't have a big tax bill to pay.
Perfect time to do it right now.
Call the collector's office, talk to Shannon Van Kirk or her staff, and check into that. More and more people have done that. Yep, and been very happy.
And she also reported, and I know you're all anxious about that, is tax bills will go out November 8th.
Yep, November 8th. So, otherwise,
Election day.
absentee voting is going on right now.
Yep. Excused for another 4 days.
Yeah, you got to have an excuse, and
Yeah.
then there's a period of time where you don't have to have an excuse. If you just want to come in and vote, you can do it.
Yep.
Courthouse will be open on the Saturday before Election Day from 8 to noon for absentee voting, and then till 5 o'clock on Monday before the election. So,
Very good. As always, we thank Darrell for coming in, spending some time with us to give you more of an insight. I want to thank Ron Copeland for coming in, our state representative, who will have a little change in his district, going south to going a little bit north. And so
his district before went from Dent County, here at Salem, Dent County, all the way to Arkansas.
yeah, God, that's a long,
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
long district. But anyway, it's kind of back to where it was years ago, Darrell, if I remember, with
Yes.
Denton Crawford, maybe a little bit of Phelps, I think, years ago when Jason Smith was doing it.
Uh-huh.
And so we're kind of back to that again. And so no big deal, but we want to thank Ron for coming in, spending the time with us today, and giving us some insight on different things and what he sees that are needs. And I really appreciate him trying to look out for the county and trying to find another ways of making some money that he feels the state is not sharing appropriatly.
Yep.
You know,
Sure
and
do.
that's why he's elected, and I feel he tries to do the best he can for the area.
Yep.
So we'll thank him for coming in.
Very good. Yep.
Meantime,
we'll be
Darrell,
back.
thank you for coming in as well. Again, this program is paid for by Darrell out of his own very pocket.
Yep.
Even gets the water free
Every month,
And,
Melba
that
squeezes
he
some
has.
money out of me. Yep,
We
that's
give you
okay.
a free bottle of water, okay?
Free bottle of water.
Free
Best
bottle
deal
of
in town.
water, absolutely free. And Darrell, we've been doing this a long time, and we want to thank him for getting you more information about your county and doing it on every first and third Friday now. We used to be second and fourth, but moved it to accommodate the schedule.
First and third Friday mornings.
To accommodate you much better on the schedule
Yes.
after MRPC meetings and things, a little bit hairy, and some of your CCAM meetings
Right.
got a little bit rough. So nonetheless, though, I want to thank Darrell. And again, if you have any questions, you see Darrell, ask him about it. I'd be more than happy to
You
talk
bet.
to you about
Yep.
different things.
I do. I have people comment periodically about something they seen or something they heard, and so forth, and something they liked or didn't like, and that's fine. And I appreciate hearing it. So we will be back here on Friday, November the 4th. I can't believe it'll be November. Yeah, but I think I'll have some. I think I'll have some good news that we'll be sharing. I think some news this week on update of progress on the Department of Revenue thing. And so at any rate, I do appreciate everybody listening. I appreciate the opportunity. And until we're back here, I hope everyone will be safe, happy, healthy. God bless each and every one. And we'll leave you with